Hey everyone, welcome to HEADCHECK Health Talks. I'm Eric VanderHelm, the host here and the sales manager at HEADCHECK Health. And then we have on here today as our guest, Marc Franche. Marc Franche, from the Eastern Ontario Junior Hockey League. He's the commissioner of that league. So welcome, Marc. And just to get started here, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how exactly you ended up becoming the commissioner of the EOJHL.
Well, thanks for having me on, Eric. So like every other kid in Canada, I started off skating, and my dad played, so I was on skates at a young age, and then I was lucky enough to play, competitive hockey here in Ottawa, and then when I got older, still I played up to junior, but then after that, realized that a career in hockey wasn't going to be in the offing. So I joined the RCMP when I was 20. And so I was able to, work 34 years with the RCMP. But during that time, I still played, hockey everywhere where I was transferred and posted. And then later on, got into coaching. So I started as a non-parent coach at my first posting in Kirkland Lake, and coached in Northern Ontario in AAA midget and AA PB. And then when I moved, I was in Peterborough, and that's when I had my son. So I was able to, started coaching, in Timbits, and and all through my high school years, I worked at a hockey school, so coaching was the next progression, and then I got older. I went back to being a non-parent coach in midget AAA and in junior. And then when my daughter came along, my wife said, "Okay, it's enough time coaching other people's kids. It's time for you to get back to your daughter and her friends." So I went back and coached girls hockey. And then when the opportunity came, they were looking for a commissioning junior B league. Somebody approached me to put my name in, and I was selected to be the commissioner, and I'm going into my fifth season now with the EOJHL.
Awesome. So bottom line, I guess you're just a hockey guy. You've
Just a
always
hockey
loved,
lifer. Yeah.
yeah, you just can't get away from it. No matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, you're playing, coaching hockey.
It's
So
like it's like the mob. Once you're in, every time you try to get out, they pull you back in, just like in The Godfather. So yeah, it's and again, I've had lucky enough to hold every position, from in management to coaching. Only thing I haven't done at a rink is driven a Zamboni. So maybe that'll be a bucket list item for the next before I lose my license and get too old. But everything else I've had a chance to do, and it's been a great journey. And marrying, my passion for hockey has always been able to follow me along. So it's been really great.
the missing Zamboni driver experience, I think, is a serious gap on the resume that I would be concerned.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting because I played hockey when I was younger, and I know a lot of guys obviously that played, and I don't think a lot of people think about. I mean, I guess people think about the commissioner of the NHL, but a lot of people don't really think about what life is like for a commissioner. Did you desire to become a commissioner, or did it just sort of fall on your lap, so to speak? Like you said,
Yeah.
they put your name
Yeah.
forward.
No, it 100% did. It was never something I said, "Oh, geez, maybe someday I'd like to." And again, like when it comes to being commissioner of a big league like the NHL or the OHL, like David Branch did for so many years in the OHL, it's not something that you kind of think of, because there's not a lot. First of all, not a lot of those positions kicking around. Even
Yep.
though it's at the junior B level, there's only when we sit down with all the different leagues in Ontario, it's a pretty small group. So you kind of, and again, it was an opportunity because I'd been coached and managed, was part of the management team in the junior A league here, and then this opportunity came open, and one of the owners approached me and said, "Hey, we've got a vacancy, and we'd how about you put your name in an interview?" So, and I did, and yeah, it's worked out. So I was lucky enough to have my contract extended this year for 3 more years. So at the end of my contract, I've done it for 8 years now. So I'm entering my fifth year, and it's been a lot of steep learning curve, but going in my fifth year, I finally got a hang of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, steep learning curve. That kind of takes me to my next question here, because like I said, a lot of people don't really think about what it's like to be a commissioner. It's not really something that's thought of a lot. But a lot of people have opinions about the decisions that commissioners make and stuff like that. So I guess, could you just take us through what your day to day looks like as a commissioner?
Yeah, so again, because we have a large geographical area, like tip to tip, it's a 2.5 hour drive for our teams. But it's not like when you think of junior leagues, like when you've got out west, where your nearest opponent is 2.5 or 3 hours away. So travel isn't an issue, and it's not like and again, we're kind of a niche because we're in Ottawa area. We're the only area that has 3 levels of junior. We have junior A, junior B, and junior C. So we're kind of unique in that way. Whereas like in southern, in southern Ontario, you've got a big junior A, big junior B influence. Whereas here we have 3 levels. So a lot of the stuff, it's not. My day to day has zero to do with X's and O's, and actually, it's just more about consensus building and making sure. And it's I can have my opinions, but again, I don't have a vote on the board of governors. So all each team appoints a board of governor, and at the end of the day, they vote, and I can kind of make my opinions known and try to make influence, and be an agent for change, and that's what I did my first few years. Like it was things like implementing a full cage instead of a half visor, which helped drive our costs down significantly for insurance. Getting involved with HEADCHECK, making sure that we follow the proper concussion protocols, and that we follow Rowan's law, which is the law in Ontario for anybody playing contact sports. So all these things are more of a juggling act, and a kind of one day you're going to call from an owner and he's your best friend, and the next day he's ready to have you see a special board of governors meeting to have you fired, right? So it's just kind of a kind of a balancing act of doing what's best for the players and being a voice for the parents and players, because again, you're playing junior from 16 to 20, so you still have 16 and 17-year-olds that are minors, so you still need to have parental consent and look out for their best interests, but at the same time look out for the owners, for them to be profitable and them to be safe from, and to operate a small business in the region.
Interesting. So yeah, you talked about consensus building, right? Balancing the interests of the parents, the team owners, or the governors. I guess I'd like to clarify. So most of these bigger decisions get voted on. So what would be the situation that would result in a governor getting upset with you? Because wouldn't it be something that they would vote on? Trying to understand.
and that's
Are there some decisions, I guess, that you make without
Yeah,
votes?
no, and that's what the irony of it all is when I implement the rules and I say, like, you need a majority vote to get this rule passed, or this, like for example, like we had some in the past few years, we had some rinks and some municipalities were saying, listen, you're running over your allotted time for games. It's not like the NHL where you rent the building for 5 hours, like you have a men's league after the game. So we implemented a rule saying that if if you're not off the ice when the Zamboni board, the buzzer sounds and the Zamboni's door open, you start with a 2-minute penalty, because we're running in grief with this. And I suggested that, and they said, okay, how about a fine? And they said, no, a fine. We don't want to, have to pay a fine, but we will punish the team 2 minutes, and they start shorthanded. Well, they voted on it unanimously, and then after that, the first time we implemented it, they, whoa, it's what are you doing? And I said, well, these are your rules. I'm just the person enforcing the rules that you vote on. So that's what I always say. It's kind of suitcase law. They only want the rules applied when it suits them, or it punishes somebody else and not necessarily them. So that's where you kind of have to remind them of saying, yeah, these aren't my rules. I didn't come up with your bylaws and your hockey ops, and these are your rules that you voted on. So that's the kind of ironic part.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I want to shift gears a little bit, because you touched on consensus building, getting those rules voted on, and then your job is to enforce them in some cases, and that can be ironically controversial in some cases. Let's talk about player safety, though, right? I think everybody that is a parent or even a coach, or I wouldn't accuse anybody in the hockey world of not caring about player safety. I guess the challenge here is that people have differing opinions on how you accomplish player safety. And so from our perspective, obviously player safety from a concussion perspective, it starts long before the concussion protocol is required to be followed. So how do you as a league build that culture of safety where, playing the right way and toughing it out are sometimes valued, and that warrior mindset? You've got all these things floating around there and competing interests there. How do you make sure that your league stays with player safety as a top priority?
Yeah, so again, like for us, like player safety starts off like in the summer, like even before teams are made or teams are picked, we have an exclusive equipment deal with CCM. So we've been in partnership with them. So they have, so all our outer, like much like the OHL used to have, but we have our helmets, glove, pants, and the sticks are all CCM. So that's something that, the health and safety starts there, making sure that all the players' helmets, are certified and have, they don't have a helmet that they had since they were in Pee Wee, a 10-year-old expired helmet. So it starts off in the summer when we order, start the equipment orders, and all the teams order the equipment. So we make sure that first of all, the players have the best outer equipment, protective equipment that's available, right? Because you see, like most people don't think that helmets have an expiry date, but they do. So when I go play pickup with my old beer league guys and I see the old style Jofas and all these old helmets falling apart, like in the foam inside, it's all dried out. Like that's the first part of as is looking at your equipment and saying, oh my God, this stuff, I had this in the 80s. Like maybe it's time for me to divvy up and get a new bucket. And another big part, like when we went to full cages, that was one big piece. When one of my first things that I brought in was that I was really a champion for is being stricter for fighting. The Hockey Canada, every year Hockey Canada comes out with the junior guidelines for suspensions. And in the guidelines, it's you don't get suspended until your third fight. Well, I said again, like I know that it's a rite of passage when you play hockey. You get out of minor hockey, you want to have your first, your face big boy tilt or whatever you want to call it. So guys, not playing minor hockey, I'm playing big boy hockey. I'm going to drop the gloves and, give it the finger guns after I win the fight. So we say, okay, it's part of it. But after your second fight, you automatically get suspended. So you get a 1-game suspension after your second fight, 3 games after your third, and then you have a hearing with myself and the director of discipline. So I find that that's gone a long way, and we've seen a steady decrease in fighting. And especially if we're trying to, recruit younger players, because you have a wide range, right? You can go from, each team can have up to 2 16-year-olds, and you can have 20-year-olds. Like the last thing we want is some guy with that's got his man weight grabbing some 16-year-old and injuring him or leaving him intimidated and not want to participate in our league, because usually the 16 and 17-year-old guys are still chasing the dream, and those are the guys that are going to make our league look like a good stepping stone to higher levels of Junior A, OHL, or Quebec League.
Interesting. Yeah. On the old style Jofa helmet, I mean, I think I got kicked out of I don't call it a beer league, right? But like a house, like the Barrie men's hockey league I was playing in, and the referee told me that I couldn't come back. Like if he saw me again with that helmet, that he would give me a suspension.
Yeah, exactly. So and again, you've got guys again. No, and that's why, like, until I got in this position, I didn't realize, like, I was a kid, I wore a helmet, and we didn't have this the safety stickers, but now they have the safety board sticker, and on the other side there's an expiry date. So you can only imagine if you're sweating, and especially guys at the higher level wearing their helmets like 2 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, the padding, and it starts to break down with the sweat and everything. So it is important to check your gear, and it's not just okay. Well, it's got a big crack in it. The integrity of and the protective qualities of the helmet break down far before you get a crack, or it starts splitting when you screw it on. So that equipment component and implementing, stricter penalties, and we keep track of who's doing what in the league. So if we have somebody that's obviously not there to play hockey, that's just out there to run around and hurt people, like we do deal with that pretty severely, and we'll tell them, like, okay, this is not the league for you. Go find somebody else. And the old expression, like when I got here, it used to be Jungle B, Jungle B. Every junior league it's called Jungle B. Well, that's not the reputation we have now. So and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you should be proud of that. And so, you talked about suspensions, disciplinary action for players that are obviously not there to play. You want to make sure that they're not tarnishing the rest of the league. But I imagine that there's some controversy and some criticism that comes along with that. So how do you ensure that those disciplinary actions are perceived as fair and consistent and transparent by all the teams, even if they might disagree with your decision or the outcome?
Yeah, so again, when I got to the league, we didn't. It was the commissioner and the hockey. They had a commissioner before that and a hockey operations person. And I said, I don't think it falls. It should fall on the commissioner or the hockey ops person, the person that's telling you how to, hockey ops guy telling you how to update your roster, doing, stuff for player profiles for social media, running after, people for submissions for player of the week. I don't think it's right for them or myself to be doling out suspension. So we created a director of discipline. So it's somebody that's solely independent, and it's somebody that's never owned a team or anything like that in the league. It's somebody independent, and so he has no horse in the race, right? So he's just he looks at it on its merits, reviews the incident, and all our games are videoed. So he looks, and if he needs to, he asks input from the official if there was anything leading up to it, and then he doles out the discipline. So that way, and if they don't agree, then there's an appeals process where they appeal to me, and we invite it's an appeals chairman, and it's somebody that we appoint at the beginning of every year. That's somebody that's experienced in hockey, that's been there, done that, and they'll review it, and his decision is binding. So that way, one day you're not, and all, obviously we follow, as stated earlier, we follow the Hockey Canada guidelines for suspensions. So if it's a match penalty, if you call a match for this, it's 5 games, or if you call a gross misconduct, it's 5 games. So it's not up to us. But if we feel it's something that is a repeat or something that tarnishes the league, then we do, we can add on to that. But at least this way, when being a Hockey Canada sanctioned league, we go with the minimum, and then we can always add on. So that's that's where you get the consistency. And it's not like the NHL where, like, again, I don't want to start going on a tangent, but yesterday, Sen scored what I thought was a goal. I was at the home opener, and somehow they called goalie interference, and they've been calling it for years now, and I don't know what it is, and I can't figure out what it's a coin flip because there's no consistency. Whereas us, on a smaller scale, when it's suspendable, this is the penalty that's called. It's black and white. We send a copy to all our owners before the year starts. These are the Hockey Canada guidelines for suspension, and this is what the minimum is. We can always add on more, but this is the minimum. So if they can't be appealed because these are the standards set out by Hockey Canada.
Yeah, I still don't know I couldn't define goaltender interference.
Don't get me.
Yeah, before you get going on that, you mentioned that the infrastructure around, well, I guess the setup around reviewing suspensions as having video involved. Let's talk about some of the other technology that you use, safety infrastructure, specifically HEADCHECK. You've been a partner with us, or you've worked with us for a long time now. We're like the digital foundation for following your concussion protocol. And how has that helped your league?
Well, again, I look back and, again, I'm a lot older. I've got a lot of hockey. Like, I look back at my minor hockey experiences, and I guarantee you that we've had, I've had concussions, and everybody that I've played with has had concussions. And it was just like, okay, come on, basically the old, you got your bell rung, throw some dirt on it, like the old, dust yourself off, be a man, get up. And you're talking about a 10 or 12-year-old kid, right? So the idea of it, and getting to be more knowledgeable about it. It's not like, like when you start looking into it and you're thinking of a concussion, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It could be one concussion plus two concussion equals 5 or 10 times the effect, right? So just having it, and again, and it was kind of funny because I was watching the Monday night football, the Thursday night game with the Giants when the quarterback gets hit, and then they have in the NFL, again, you have the ability, they have the independent doctors and concussion protocol people, and he goes in the blue tent, and all of a sudden the head coach is running in there, and I get it, it's pro sports, but again, I'm not sure what happened, but he seemed to come out awfully quick for a guy that was obviously in discomfort, right? And I think we're a lot smarter, like as a society, when it comes to dealing with head injuries. And you guys play a big part of that with HEADCHECK, because again, it formalizes the whole process. Like every kid knows, once they make the team, the veterans know that they already have their profile and their baseline testing done. Rookies will have to go in and get it done, and then it's not the big boogeyman thing about saying, well, you have to go get checked and tested and follow these protocols just because we suspect. And I'm very proud of my owners and our trainers and our coaches, because they'll err on the side of caution of saying, like, I think you did get a head injury on that one. And the kids say, no, I'm fine. And they'll actively say, no, you're going to the protocol. You have to go get retested. You're going to follow under the baselines of, so many days. And then after that, you get retested so many days with the baseline testing and so many days of, without headaches. And I find that overall, parents are a lot smarter and players are a lot more aware and less willing to see, with all the the horrible things you've seen happen over the years with NHLers that were the gunslingers and the heavyweights in the NHL, all coming to different tragic endings, because unfortunately, once the fans stop and they stop cheering your name and wearing your jersey, it's the family and friends that have to deal with the after effects of head injuries. And it gets somber pretty quick when you see all the names of the young men, that in their mid-30s that are taking their lives, or are suffering strokes or heart attacks because of repeated head injuries. So I'm very proud, of the relationship we've had, and the open lines of communications with the people from HEADCHECK, and they're always a phone call away and always giving us updates, bi-weekly updates as to our team reporting. So it gives me it makes me feel a lot more secure. Makes me sleep a lot easier at night, knowing that we've got a professional in the building, knowing and how to treat this and how to deal with concussion protocol.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, Rowan's Law is based off of, the second impact syndrome, which unfortunately happened to Rowan Stringer. This was when she had a second concussion before she had recovered from her first concussion. So, you mentioned making sure that the education is there, that the players know. And part of that education is just actually using a system like HEADCHECK, having a defined protocol and a defined system that you're actually going to execute the protocol on. I like that you mentioned the boogeyman there. And I just wanted to touch on that, because I think what happens when you get a concussion, because I've had concussions too, and you mentioned you've had concussions. And I think one of the worst parts about getting a concussion is just not knowing what happens next. And like you said, HEADCHECK just formalizes that whole process. And so it's not this big scary thing. It's okay, if you think you might have had a concussion, you know exactly what you have to do next, and the anxiety reduction from that is worth it on its own.
Well, and it rang, and it rang especially true here in Ottawa, because Rowan was a young girl playing rugby here in Ottawa, playing high school rugby, right? And so it kind of drove the point home, because it happened right around when my daughter was going through, and it was it was like, and then you had like a really, like, again, the internet is great for some things, but the internet can be a horrible place for other things. Like when that happened, when they're trying to say, people, well, it's because she just taken up rugby a few years ago, or it's the training and the neck strength. And I'm sitting there going, and all these anonymous weasels, hiding, like just making ridiculous comments. And if like, you have all sorts of effects of people like getting sidetracked from high school studies or university just because of repeated concussions. So, and I find that parents are way more responsible now about saying, okay, like I'd rather my daughter or son stop playing high school hockey, football, or rugby, whatever it is, and not put themselves at risk, and focus on being active students and productive adults than chasing the dream, whatever it is, at any cost, right? And that's where I think the protocols and your company's guidelines, and when I was shopping around for because I wanted a one-stop shop. I didn't want to have to do my Rowan's Law. I didn't want to, and every time I compared to other companies, HeadCheck kept delivering more and more and more. So it's that's why I just when our contract first expired, was just, I said, like, I've looked around, I've been around, trying to look, other agencies, companies, and HeadCheck's, a company, a leader in the field. So that's why I was happy to renew. And they've been part of my experience in junior in the league ever since my first year.
Oh, well, those are very flattering words. I think another thing too is just making sure players know that it's okay to take a few games. You'd rather take a few games to recover from your concussion than the rest of the season, or the rest of your career in some cases.
Yeah. And some kids, you don't, like, again, you're young, you're bulletproof.
Hard to understand that. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't think it, and then after that, you think, it's just it's hard to tell, like, all the stupid things you did when you were a kid. Those chickens come to roost when you turn your 40 and 50, and you have arthritis in the morning, or you have splitting headaches, and it can be minor things, but it's you have to think. Sometimes we as owners and league managers, we have to be the grown-ups in the room and say, no, you're taking the knee and you're taking a week off, and take care of yourself, or we'll see you at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask one more question. The commissioner job, it's not a 9-to-5 job, right? You're probably picking up the phone at all hours of the day. How do you avoid burnout and stay passionate about hockey with such an intense title, I guess?
Yeah, and again, like, my position isn't a full-time one, so it's a passion project that it's. But you're 100% right. If you're thinking it's like 8 to 4, and like none of our games, unless it's a Sunday or family day, or it's Sundays. Some teams have home games in our league, but it's nighttime games. So you're dealing with okay, there's a snowstorm, or we canceling the game, or we have officials that that one official's not there, or there it's or we have a broken Zamboni door. What do we do? So it's a lot of calls at all hours of the night, and again, it's why I do it, because it keeps me involved in the game in a different capacity, and not having to I can still be passionate about hockey, but not have to worry about being at the rink an hour before practice, running practice, and then the time commitment. If I could be very effective in my job and not have to go to 4 games a week, but that is the fun part, and funny enough, that what keeps me going and kind of charges my batteries is playing old man beer league on Wednesdays and Fridays from 3 to 4 in the afternoon with people that are same age, so that we're able to do it. We don't have to, because playing at 9, 10, 11 at night is no longer my thing. So it's doing that in the winter, and playing golf in the summer is what keeps me energized, and so it's definitely fun. It's a passion project. I definitely don't get Gary Bettman money. I don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the game.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Marc. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's great to see somebody so passionate about the sport, and someone that cares so much about their players and their safety. Is there anything else that you wanted to get across before we wrap up?
No, it was a pleasure being on with you, Eric, and I look forward to a continued partnership with HeadCheck for years to come.
Thanks, Marc.